Tired of writing the same code over and over again? What if I told you there's a way to make your computer do the boring, repetitive stuff for you? In this video, we're going to unlock one of the most powerful features in JavaScript, loops. By the end of this, you'll be writing smarter, not harder. Let's get started. Alright, let's talk about loops. Imagine you're a baker and you need to bake a dozen cookies. You wouldn't write down the recipe 12 times, right? You have one recipe and you just follow it again and again for each cookie. That's exactly what a loop does in programming. It's a way to run the same block of code multiple times without having to copy and paste it. This is super important because it saves us a ton of time and makes our code much cleaner. Let's say we want to count from 1 to 5. Without a loop, we'd have to do this. So I write console.log single quote counting colon 1 semicolon. Now I have to write this statement 5 times, so I will copy and paste. Okay. And changing the number to 3, 4, and 5. That's a lot of typing. What if we wanted to count to 100? That would be a nightmare. This is where loops come to the rescue. The most common type of loop is the for loop. It's perfect when you know exactly how many times you want to repeat an action. A for loop has 3 parts inside its parentheses, separated by semicolons. Let's break it down. The first part is the initialization. This is where we create a counter variable and give it a starting value. We use let because this counter will change. In our example, we'll start with let I equals to 1 because our goal is to count from 1. But you could start this at any number you want, like 0, 10, or even a negative number, depending on what you need. This is a test that happens before each loop run. As long as this condition is true, the loop will keep going. For our example, we'll say I less than or equal to 5. The third part is the increment or decrement. This is what happens after each time the loop runs. We use I++ to increase the counter by 1 each time, which is the most common step. But you could also do I equals to I plus 2 to count by 2s or any other calculation to update the counter. Now let's put it all together to count from 1 to 5. Let's write this for loop. So we start with for keyword. We write for, then a set of parentheses. And inside this parentheses, we have to mention 3 things. First, the initialization part. So I write let I equals to 1. This is the counter. I is our counter. And semicolon. No comma, just semicolon. Next, the condition. Our condition is I is less than or equal to 5. So I write I less than or equal to 5. Semicolon. And the third is our logic to update our counter, the I, okay? So I want to increase I by 1. So I write I++. Okay? Next, a set of curly braces. And inside it, I write my console.log. I write console.log backticks counting colon $, curly braces, I, semicolon. First, let me run it to see what happens. Then I will explain it. And if I run it, yeah, we see counting colon 1 and counting colon 2, 3, 4, 5. See that? Now let's understand this for loop. First, the loop is initialized. A variable I is created and its value is set to 1. Now, the first cycle begins. The condition is checked. is I, which is 1, less than or equal to 5, the condition is true. So the code inside the block is executed. Counting colon 1 is printed to the console. Next, update statement runs. I is incremented and its value becomes 2. The second cycle starts. The condition is checked again. Is I now 2 less than or equal to 5? Yes, the condition is true. The code block runs. Counting colon 2 is printed to the console. Then the update statement runs. I is incremented and its value is now 3. The third cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I, which is 3, less than or equal to 5? The condition is true again. The code block is executed. Counting colon 3 is printed to the console. And the update statement runs again. I is incremented to become 4. This process continues for I equals 4 and I equals 5. After the loop runs for I equals 5, the update statement I++ runs one last time. The value of I now becomes 6. The loop begins its next cycle with the condition check. Is I, which is now 6, less than or equal to 5? This time, the condition is false. The loop immediately terminates. The code inside the block is not executed, and the program moves on. Nice! Counting is cool, but one of the most powerful uses for for loops is going through arrays. Let's say we have an array of our favorite video games. So I write const favorite games equals to square brackets. The first game may be Elden Ring. Okay. Next, Final Fantasy. Next, The Legend of Zelda. And the last one, GTA. Yeah, semicolon. And console.log, single quote, my favorite games, colon, semicolon. And now I want to write my for loop. So I write for let I equals to 0, semicolon, and I less than favorite games that length for the condition, semicolon, and I++. Next, a set of curly braces. Console.log, favorite games, square brackets, I, and semicolon. Now let's break this for loop again. A counter variable I is created and initialized to 0. Okay, the loop condition is checked for the first time. Is I, which is 0, less than the length of the array, which is 4? The condition is true. So the code inside the loop is executed. It prints the element at index I, which is index 0 of the array. Elden Ring is printed to the console. Finally, the counter I is incremented. Its value becomes 1. The second cycle starts. The condition is checked again. Is I now 1 less than 4? Yes, the condition is true. The code block runs. It prints the element at index 1 of the array. So, Final Fantasy is printed to the console. The counter I is then incremented to 2. The third cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I, which is 2, less than 4? The condition is true. The code block is executed. It prints the element at index 2. The counter I is incremented and becomes 3. The fourth cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I now 3 less than 4? The condition is still true. The code block runs one more time. It prints the element at index 3. The counter I is incremented to 4. Now the loop starts its final check. Is I, which is now 4, less than 4? This time, the condition is false. The loop immediately terminates. The program has finished its task. And if I run it, yeah, we see the result. We just predicted. Yeah. We can also use loops to create new arrays. But first, let me comment these things out. Okay. Let's say we have an array of numbers and we want a new array with each of those numbers doubled. Okay, so let me declare my array first. Const numbers equals to square brackets 2, comma 4, comma 6, comma 8, comma 10, semicolon. And let me write an empty array for double numbers. Okay, so I write const double numbers equals to square brackets, an empty array. Okay, next I write my loop. So for set of parentheses, I start with 0. Let I equals to 0, semicolon. And next I less than numbers dot length, semicolon, and I plus plus. A set of curly braces. And next I write const doubled equals to numbers square brackets I times 2 semicolon. And next we push this value to the empty array we've made. So double numbers that push doubled semicolon. And next console.log doubled numbers. Now let's trace this for loop. A counter variable I is created and its value is initialized to 0. The loop starts its first cycle. The condition is checked is I, which is 0, less than the length of the numbers array, which is 5. Yes, the condition is true. Inside the loop, the element at index 0 of numbers, which is 2, is multiplied by 2. The result, 4, is stored in a new constant called doubled. Then, this doubled value is pushed into the doubled numbers array. The doubled numbers array now contains the single value 4. Finally, I is incremented to 1. The second cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I now 1 less than 5? This is true. The element at index 1 of numbers, which is 4, is multiplied by 2. The result is 8. This value 8 is pushed into the double numbers array. The double numbers array now holds 4 and 8. The counter I is then incremented to 2. This same process continues for the remaining elements in the numbers array. The number 6 is doubled to 12 and pushed into the array. The number 8 is doubled to 16 and pushed into the array. The number 10 is doubled to 20 and pushed into the array, and so on. After the loop processes the last number, the counter I is incremented to 5. The loop checks the condition one last time. Is 5 less than 5? This is false. The loop terminates. The final line of code outside the loop is now executed. Console.log prints the final state of the double numbers array. Now the output will be 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20. So let's run it and see it. So if I run it, yeah, now the output is 4, 8, 12, 16, and 20, which is number is doubled, okay? Sometimes you need more control. JavaScript gives us two keywords for this: continue and break. Continue skips the current iteration and jumps to the next one. Imagine we have a list of snacks, but we want to skip the unhealthy ones. So I define my snacks. I write const snacks equals to single quote apple, comma, chocolate, comma, carrot sticks, comma, chips, comma, banana, semicolon. And I write my for loop for let I equals to 0, semicolon, and I less than snacks the length, semicolon, and I plus plus. Set of curly braces. And now I have to write my condition. If snacks square brackets I, now I use strict equality operator. 3 equal signs. Chocolate or snacks square brackets I, chips. Okay, these are the bad ones. Inside the curly braces, I write continue, semicolon. Now outside the if, I write console.log. Backticks, I'm eating. $sign curly braces, snacks, square brackets, I, semicolon. Let's break this one again. A counter variable I is created, and its starting value is set to 0, okay? The loop starts its first cycle. The condition is checked. Is I, which is 0, less than the array length of 5? Yes, it is true. Now, the if statement inside the loop runs. It checks if the snack at index 0, which is apple, is equal to chocolate or chips. This is false, so the if block is skipped. The console.log statement runs. I'm eating apple is printed to the console. The loop finishes the cycle by incrementing I to 1. The second cycle begins. The condition is checked again. Is I now 1 less than 5? This is true. The if statement checks the snack at index 1, which is chocolate. Is chocolate equal to chocolate or chips? Yes, this is true. The code inside the if block is executed. The continue keyword is triggered. This immediately stops the current iteration and tells the loop to jump to the next one. So the console.log statement is skipped entirely. The loop runs its update, okay, and I is incremented to 2. The third cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I, which is 2, less than 5? Yes, that is true. The if statement checks the snack at index 2, carrot sticks. This is not chocolate or chips, so the condition is false. The if block is skipped. The console.log statement runs. I'm eating carrot sticks is printed. The counter I is then incremented to 3. The fourth cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I now 3 less than 5? This is true. The if statement checks the snack at index 3, which is chips. The condition is true because the snack is chips, okay? The continue keyword is triggered again. The current iteration stops. The console.log is skipped and the loop moves on. The counter I is incremented to 4. And the fifth cycle begins again, and the condition is checked. This is true. The if statement checks the snack, which is banana. The condition is false. The if block is skipped, and the console.log statement runs again. I'm eating banana is printed. And the counter I is incremented one last time to 5. Now the loop starts another cycle. The condition is checked. Is I now 5 less than 5? This is false. The loop terminates and the execution stops. Okay, I told you all that to tell you that continuous statement forces the loop to stop that current iteration. Okay, fine. Now let's see the break statement. Break stops the loop completely. Let's say we're looking for a specific book. Once we find it, we can stop looking. Okay, now write const bookshelf equals to square brackets, single quote Dune, comma, single quote foundation, next comma, Hyperion, and the last one, The Hobbit. Semicolon. Let's write our for loop again. So for let I equals to 0, semicolon. I less than bookshelf the length, semicolon, and I plus plus. set of curly braces, and here I write console.log backticks checking colon $sign curly braces bookshelf square brackets I semicolon. Now our condition if bookshelf square brackets I strict equality operator Hyperion console.log founded semicolon and break semicolon. This break statement stops the loop immediately and our job is done. Okay? And if I run it, yeah, we see that the loop stops right after it finds Hyperion. It won't even check the Hobbit. Now let's explore some more advanced and really useful looping techniques. Okay? First, looping backwards. What if you want to loop through an array backwards, like a countdown? It's just a small change to our for loop logic, but it's important to understand each part. Let's break down how to set this up, okay? First, the initialization part. We must start a counter at the very last element. Remember, arrays are zero indexed, so if an array has 5 elements, its indexes are 0, 1, 2, 3, and 4. The length is 5, so the last index is always length minus 1. That's why we start with let I equals to that array's length minus 1. Next, the condition. We want the loop to continue as long as our index is a valid one. The very first index of any array is 0, so our loop should keep running as long as I is greater than or equal to 0. We have to write I is greater than or equal to 0. And the third part is the update logic. Here, instead of adding to the counter with I++, we have to subtract from it using I minus minus to move backwards through the indexes. Okay, so these are the essential things you have to remember. Now, with knowing this knowledge, let's write some code. So first, I declare an array. Okay, so I write const launch codes equals to square brackets the first element alpha. Next, Bravo. Next, Charlie. Next, Delta. And engage. Semicolon. And for the for loop, to loop backwards, I write for set of parentheses let I equals to launch codes dot length minus 1 semi. So I start my counter at the very last element. Next, I greater than or equal to 0 semicolon and I minus minus. Set of curly braces. All right. Console.log backticks $, curly braces, I, colon, $, curly braces again, launch codes, square brackets, I, and semicolon. Now, before I run it, let's trace this for loop, okay? The for loop begins its setup, but this one works in reverse. The counter variable I is created and initialized to the length of the array minus 1. Okay, since the array length is 5, I starts at 4. The loop starts its first cycle. The condition is checked. Is I, which is 4, greater than or equal to 0? Yes, the condition is true. The code inside the loop runs. It prints the value of I, a colon, and the element at index 4 of the array. 4 colon engage is printed to the console. Next, the update statement runs. I minus minus decrements I, so its value becomes 3. The second cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I now 3 greater than or equal to 0? This is true. The code block runs again. It prints the element at index 3. 3 colon delta is printed to the console. The counter I is then decremented to 2. The third cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I now 2 greater than or equal to 0? This is true again. The code block runs, printing the element at index 2. 2 colon Charlie is printed to the console. The counter I now is decremented to 1. The fourth cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I, which is 1, greater than or equal to 0? This is true. The code runs, printing the element at index 1, 1 colon Bravo, is printed to the console. The counter I now is decremented to 0. The fifth and final cycle begins. The condition is checked. Is I now 0 greater than or equal to 0? The condition is still true. The code block runs for the last time. It prints the element at index 0. 0 colon alpha is printed to the console. The counter I is decremented one last time, becoming minus 1. Now, the loop starts another cycle check. Is I, which is now minus 1, greater than or equal to 0? This time, the condition is false. The loop immediately terminates, and the execution stops. And if I run it, yeah, we see engaged, which is last element of the array, shows itself the first one, and so on. Now, let's talk about the concept that might seem complex at first, but is incredibly powerful. Nested loops. This is simply a loop that lives inside of another loop. Okay? Let me explain it this way. Think about the hands on a clock. For the minute hand, which means the outer loop, to move forward just one single tick, the second hand, which means the inner loop, has to complete its entire 60-second journey. This is exactly how nested loops work. The core principle is, for every one step of the outer loop, the inner loop will complete its entire journey from beginning to end. This means the inner loop runs much more frequently, creating combinations between the elements of both loops. Let's look at a practical example of pairing up dancers to see this in action. Let me declare some arrays here. So I write const group A equals to square brackets, first dancer, Alice, and next, Bob, semicolon. And next group is group B, const group B equals to Eve and Frank, semicolon. Now I start writing the for loop. For set of parentheses, let I equals to 0. We start at 0. Semicolon. I less than group A dot length. Semicolon. And I plus plus. Set of curly braces. This for loop that we wrote here was the outer loop. But the next one I'm going to write inside this loop going to be inner loop. So for set of parentheses, let j equals to 0, semicolon, and j less than group B dot length, semi, and j plus plus. A set of curly braces. Next I write console.log backticks $ curly braces group A square brackets I will dance with $ curly braces group B square brackets J. Now let's trace exactly how the computer executes this code step by step. The outer loop begins and its counter I is 0. It selects the first person from group A, who is Alice. The outer loop now effectively pauses, holding onto Alice, and tells the inner loop, okay, it's your turn. Do your entire job. Now, the inner loop starts fresh. Its counter J is 0. It selects the first person from group B, which is Eve. It prints Alice will dance with Eve. The inner loop continues to its next step. J is now 1. It selects the next person from group B, which is Frank. It prints Alice will dance with Frank. The inner loop has now reached its end. Its job is done for this round. Now that the inner loop has finished, the outer loop can finally move to its next step. Its counter I becomes 1. It selects the next person from group A, who is Bob. The outer loop pauses again, now holding Bob, and tells the inner loop, it's your turn again. Start over and do your whole job. The inner loop starts completely over. Its counter J goes back to 0. It selects Eve from group B. It prints Bob will dance with Eve. The inner loop continues. J becomes 1. It selects Frank from group B. It prints Bob will dance with Frank. The inner loop has reached its end again. The outer loop now tries to continue, but it has also reached its end. The entire process is finished. This structure guarantees that every item from the outer loop is matched with every item from the inner loop, giving us all possible combinations. And that's a wrap on for loops in JavaScript. If you found this helpful, please give this video a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe for more JavaScript tutorials. Got questions? Drop them in the comments below. Happy coding!